The forest is not your friend. It is not your enemy either. It is simply an indifferent machine that follows a set of brutal physical laws. Most people who perish in the wilderness aren't explorers in the Amazon or climbers on K2. They are ordinary people, people like you and me, who went for a walk in a place they felt they knew. There is a psychological phenomenon called the normalcy bias. It is a survival mechanism of the human brain that tells us everything will continue to be okay, simply because it always has been. When you step into a forest you visited since childhood, your brain switches to a low power mode. You recognize the oak tree by the trailhead. You recognize the bend in the creek. You feel a sense of ownership over the land. But nature doesn't recognize you. In this video, we're going to dissect a specific, terrifying scenario, the 200-meter trap. We will explore how a simple afternoon stroll can turn into a desperate fight for life, and why the closest you are to home, the more dangerous the woods become. We will look at the physiological breakdown of the human body under stress and the specific mistakes that lead to what search and rescue teams call the fatal circle.
Let's set the scene. Imagine a man named David. David is 34 years old, fit, and reasonably intelligent. It's a crisp Saturday in mid-October. The air smells of damp earth and decaying leaves, that sharp, sweet scent of autumn. David is at his family's cabin, a place he's been coming to for 20 years. He decides to head out for a quick hike. He wants to check a ridge about 2 miles away to see if the foliage is peaking for some photography. He checks his gear, or rather, he doesn't. He has his smartphone, currently at 62% battery. He's wearing a flannel shirt, a pair of denim jeans, and leather boots. No backpack, no water bottle, no lighter, no whistle. In David's mind, he isn't going into the wilderness. He's going into the backyard. This is the first link in the chain of survival errors. As he walks, the sun is high and bright. The forest is loud with the sound of squirrels and the wind through the remaining leaves. David reaches the ridge, takes his photos, and feels that rush of dopamine that comes with a beautiful view. But as he turns to head back, he sees something. About 50 yards off the main trail, there's a cluster of birch trees, bright white against the orange forest floor. He thinks that would make an incredible shot. He steps off the trail. He walks 50 meters, then another 50. He spends 10 minutes taking photos. The sun begins to dip behind a cloud bank. The light changes. The shadows, which were short and sharp, suddenly stretch and blur. David finishes his photos and turns to walk back to the trail, or where he thinks the trail is.
After walking for 5 minutes, David hasn't hit the trail. He stops. He isn't worried yet, just annoyed. He turns 30 degrees to the left, certain that he must have angled himself incorrectly. What David doesn't know is that he is currently experiencing the veil. This is when the forest canopy and the lack of a horizon line strip the human brain of its ability to maintain a straight trajectory. Without a fixed point in the distance, like a mountain peak or a tall building, humans cannot walk in a straight line. Biologically, our legs are never perfectly equal in strength or length. Over a long distance, we naturally veer. In a dense forest, this veer becomes a tight spiral. David starts to walk faster. His heart rate, which was a resting 70 beats per minute, climbs to 110. His brain is beginning to realize that the familiar landmarks are gone. The birch trees he just left, he turns around to look for them, but they have vanished into the gray-brown mosaic of the woods.
This is the most critical moment in any survival situation. At this point, David is only 300 meters from a paved road. If he stood still and screamed, someone might hear him. But his ego won't let him scream. He's just a few minutes away, he tells himself. He begins to jog. Now the biology of panic takes over. When the brain senses it is lost, it triggers the amygdala, the ancient reptilian part of our mind. The amygdala doesn't care about navigation, it only cares about flight. David is no longer a hiker, he is a prey animal, trying to escape an invisible predator, the forest itself. He trips over a hidden root. His hands hit the dirt, the cold dampness soaking into his palms. He stands up, his flannel shirt now damp with sweat. And here is where the science of survival gets grim.
As the last sliver of the sun disappears behind the horizon, David faces his second invisible enemy, thermal conductivity. In the city, we think of cold as an inconvenience, something we solve by turning up the thermostat or putting on a sweater. But in the deep woods, cold is a physical force that actively drains the battery of your life. David is wearing denim jeans. In the survival world, there is a common saying, "Cotton kills." Here is why. Cotton is a hollow fiber. When it gets wet, whether from the drizzling rain now starting to fall, or from the sweat David generated while panicking, it loses all its insulating properties. Worse, it holds that water against the skin. Water conducts heat away from the body 25 times faster than air. As David sits down against a damp pine tree, the forest begins to drink his body heat. This is called conduction. Every second he spent running was a withdrawal from a bank account of energy he cannot replenish. His core temperature starts to slide from a healthy 37 degrees Celsius, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. When it hits 35 degrees Celsius, 95 degrees Fahrenheit, the first stage of hypothermia sets in. The shivering starts. This is a brilliant, desperate biological reflex. Your muscles are firing in rapid succession to create friction and heat. But shivering consumes massive amounts of glucose. David hasn't eaten since breakfast. He is burning fuel he doesn't have. Inside his brain, the cold is slowing down the chemical reactions between neurons. This leads to the umbles, stumbling, mumbling, and fumbling. David tries to check his phone. His fingers, numb and stiff, can't grip the sleek glass. He drops it. It falls into a pile of wet leaves. The screen flickers, the battery hit by the cold, and it goes black. The last tether to the modern world has just been cut.
Total darkness in the wilderness is not like darkness in a bedroom. It is thick, heavy, and absolute. Without the light pollution of a city, the forest becomes a void. David is now in the survival gap. This is the period where the psychological terror is more dangerous than the physical environment. When the eyes can't see, the brain tries to fill in the blanks. This is a phenomenon called audio pareidolia. The snap of a twig 100 yards away sounds like a footstep right behind his head. The wind whistling through the hollow trunk of a dead ash tree sounds like a human moan. David's heart, already strained by the cold, hammers against his ribs. Every time he hears a sound, a fresh jolt of adrenaline hits his system. But adrenaline is a short-term drug. It provides a burst of energy followed by a massive crash. By 2 a.m., David is experiencing the screaming silences of the woods. He is hallucinating light. He thinks he sees the glow of a cabin window in the distance, but it's just the moon reflecting off a wet leaf.
If he leaves his spot now to chase that ghost light, he will likely walk off a ledge or fall into a creek. He realizes he must build something. He can't build a fire. He has no lighter, and the forest is soaked. He has to build a debris hut. Using his numb hands like claws, he begins to scrape together forest litter. He finds a fallen log and leans branches against it. He piles 6 inches of dryish pine needles on the ground. He isn't building a house. He is building a human thermos. He crawls into the small, cramped space, covering himself with more leaves. The smell is overwhelming. The scent of rot, damp earth, and ancient mold. But inside this tiny pocket of debris, the air begins to warm by just a few degrees. It is the difference between dying at 4 a.m. and seeing the sunrise.
Dawn doesn't arrive with a burst of light. It arrives as a slow, agonizing gray. David is alive, but he is broken. His joints are locked with cold. His skin is a pale, waxy blue. But with the light comes the return of his prefrontal cortex, the logical part of his brain. He remembers a basic rule. Water flows downhill, and people live near water. Instead of walking in circles, he looks for a topographical feature. He finds a small drainage ditch, a place where the rainwater from the night before is trickling. He follows it. He doesn't run. He moves with the deliberate, slow pace of an old man. 3 hours later, he hears it. It's not a bird. It's not the wind. It's the rhythmic, percussive sound of tires on a rumble strip.
When David finally breaks through the tree line and sees the gray asphalt to the highway, he realizes he is only 1.5 miles from where he parked his car. He had been circling in a space no larger than a few city blocks for 14 hours. He collapses on the shoulder of the road. A passing trucker stops. David will survive, but he will leave the forest with permanent changes. He will have minor nerve damage in his toes from the early stages of frostbite. He will have a lingering fight-or-flight response to the sound of wind in the trees. But most importantly, he will never again look at a small patch of woods as a backyard.
The story of David is a composite of thousands of real-life search and rescue cases. The 200-meter trap is real because it preys on our arrogance. If you take anything away from this story, let it be these 3 things. The whistle. A human voice fails in 20 minutes. A plastic whistle lasts forever and cuts through the sound of wind and rain. The trash bag. A simple 55-gallon trash bag in your pocket can be turned into a waterproof poncho or a sleeping bag that saves you from conduction. The ego. The moment you realize you don't know exactly where the trail is, stop. Every step you take after that moment is a step toward a potential grave. Nature is not cruel. It is simply uncompromising. It doesn't care about your plans, your gear, or your experience. It only cares about the laws of physics. Next time you go for a quick walk, ask yourself, are you ready to stay for the night?